and somehow you have been magnified into gigantic status in the camera. I really don't know what happened here, but
Do
we'll
I
try to do a little
do I
adjustment.
need to adjust my monitor?
No, 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 no,
Oh
no.
no, you did
You're
it.
good.
You
I got
did
it.
it.
Yeah, I don't want to chase you around with the little button controls in this software. So
You know
you're
what
good.
it was? It's
What?
it's the fact that I had this hat that says, let me zoom in here real quick.
Yeah. Fishing is life. The rest is just details. I'll tell you what, it was a hot life yesterday on the water.
That is
Yeah, I actually went for a couple of hours yesterday evening had to go take a look at a deal for a tournament. Anyway, it was hot.
well, that's why you had me zoomed in because you were admiring that hat, and I wore that hat for you.
No, really. And you know what else was? Well, actually, it was not so fun for me while we're sitting here kind of bantering back and forth as the number of people watching rises. I accidentally ran over a piece of steel in my fiberglass boat, which, as you probably know, that typically doesn't mix well.
Hmm.
But you know what the good news is? Starting this year, the Wildlife and Fisheries has banned the use of steel and metal in lakes, finally, now that I'm 50 something years old.
So wait a minute. Ban the you? Are you talking about duck hunting?
Well,
What are you talking about? Ban the use
specifically towards putting rebar and all that in for like running yo-yos and
of.
trot lines and all that, but it may apply to ducks too, to duck hunting as well, because what I ran into was not from fishermen, it was from duck hunters.
Oh, I
And
got you. I got you.
it was under the water about 4 to 6 inches, so there's no way I could have seen it.
I had no idea. Well, see, I knew you couldn't use lead anymore. So, I mean,
No, I'm
what
not.
does
No,
that
I'm not
mean?
talking about steel shot. I'm talking about steel rebar, drill stem, stuff
Well,
like
did
that.
they specify?
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
did.
when it's like red flag laws. I mean, did they specify? I mean, so are they talking about steel shot and good? So, what am I going? Am I gonna have to use a
Well,
damn
I got,
BB? I mean, a slingshot with a rock to kill ducks?
I got to look up the deal. It came across my Facebook deal or whatever, and so I need to look it up to clarify. But I can just tell you that it seems like finally you won't be able to drive rebar into stumps and let it rust off at the surface of the water, which is not good for aluminum boats too. By the way, it's not just fiberglass. You know,
Well,
steel and aluminum don't mix well.
if you got one of them pansy aluminum boats, yeah. But if you get one with a 180 gauge like mine, I mean, bring it on, baby. But I
So
guess we can.
anyway,
So anybody that's friends with wildlife and fisheries, you can tag them because we're going to tag them here in a little while after we take a stroll around Bossier City, right?
yeah, eventually I will get this into a hunting and fishing show somehow. And I won't get on my soapbox about you know, the new regular, of course, the fees, as we discussed on this very show, the
No, we're going
fees.
to discuss it again tonight.
All right, perfect,
I
because
got it.
I got a little soapbox to get on.
I got it in the notes. And look, you ain't even got to be a hunter or a fisherman to get on that soapbox. I mean, do you realize if you bird watch, wildlife and fisheries is coming for you, baby?
Oh yeah, gonna cost you money to get out there and God's wonderful creation and just watch birds. All right, well, let's go ahead and we'll do our countdown, folks. We appreciate everybody watching. We got about 40 of you online so far. That's awesome. We're going to do, for those of you that are new, we're going to do our countdowns, about 2.5, 3 minutes or whatever. That gives everybody time to grab a glass of tea or whatever your favorite beverage may be. Make some popcorn. We've got plenty of stuff to talk about tonight, and we have a very special guest coming on.
Special guests. And so, Bossier City, wildlife and fisheries. And rumor has it we're going to talk something about First Church and the Southern Baptist Convention.
And maybe a little hypocrisy. Surely I wouldn't suggest that Brad is ever hypocritical. Surely
Never,
not.
no, there's no
No.
hypocrisy. No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
All right. Well, let's hit the countdown, folks. We will be right back. Y'all stay tuned. Tag your friends, text your friends, do all that sort of good stuff. Share the feed out so we can get some more people in here watching. We will be back in, I don't know, about 3 minutes. This Bossier Watch live broadcast is brought to you by Eagle Truck Center, soaring to new heights. The Outdoor News, fishing and outdoors for our area. Acadiana Mortgage, over 23 years in the mortgage business. Smarter Geek, making technology easier. And the many supporters, donations, and folks sharing information and watching out for Bossier. Now, grab your popcorn and a drink. Here we go. Here we go, and well, here we are again. Show number, I think I got it right in the deal tonight. Show number 109. That's a lot of shows and a lot of hours.
Oh, and I put the wrong number on the notes. Let me fix that.
Well, I think I'm right, but it's been one of those days, so there's no telling. I'm really kind of flying by the seat of my pants again tonight for the shows.
Well, for those of you that have joined while we were doing the intro, I mean, probably save you some time. Uh, Tonight's topics: Bossier City. Who knew?
Yeah, we're going to talk about mooing and the Jimmy Davis Bridge again. There's some more mooing or mowing or, well, however we want to say the acronym going on. And what else?
Redistricting in Bossier City. Apparently, that is a hot topic. Did you know that they had a meeting yesterday and they're going to have another meeting tomorrow? And in fact, the Bossier City Council is going to vote tomorrow on what to do.
Well, I'll be danged. They are on the ball and trying to get all the public input that they can. That's, I guess, can't really make fun of that. That's a good thing. And that kind of brings us to our guest coming up, who was actually at the meeting. What was it, last night or yesterday evening?
Yesterday, yeah. That guest was there.
Yeah.
And in addition to the redistricting, wildlife and fisheries. So for everybody
Yeah.
who uses the state's resource of wildlife management areas, I got some news for you we need to share out there.
Well, they did create a new wildlife management area too. I've been scrolling through the wildlife and fisheries feed to try to figure out the deal with. I'm not going to get to all it with steel, but we'll get to all that. Yeah. All right.
We, and First Church
Oh yeah, we got to
and
mention
the
First
Southern
Church.
Baptist Convention.
Yeah,
It's
I
going
mean,
on right now as we speak in California.
some people have claimed that we only talk about First Church just to make sure our viewer numbers are high. Guess what? That's actually true.
Um,
I mean,
well, look,
there's no doubt
it,
about it. Every time Brad does something stupid, then we have to talk about it. I mean, it's like he forces us to do it, and so people are going to watch. It's just the way it is. But anyway,
yeah, that was pretty stupid. But anyway, okay,
all right.
back to Bossier City.
Yeah. Shall we go ahead and bring our guest on?
Did we make a mistake already? Lisa Johnson is correcting us already.
2 p.m., not
She
6. Oh, and the notes. Okay. Thank you, Lisa. I did not change those notes from the other night, but let me do that right there. Good catch. So let me put this up here as well. We're glad to have Lisa commenting all the time.
Speaking of Lisa,
Yeah,
she was at the meeting yesterday as well too, and she spoke.
yeah, so maybe she can give us a little commentary or whatever, and from her perspective on how the meeting went. Okay, so yeah, the next Bossier City special meeting for the redistricting is Wednesday, which is tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. for everybody that's watching.
Right. But before we get to that, I think we need to go to cut one because
Oh,
the good mayor of Bossier City is at it
oh
again.
no, not again. All right, so give me a second.
He,
Ramble for a
he's
second. Let me get all this pulled up here.
the good mayor of the Joe Biden of Bossier. He is at it again. He's taking credit again for stuff. He tried to beat Lisa Johnson out for, the Jimmy Davis Bridge. I mean, they
All
got
right.
a close race going there, but I'm going with Lisa because Lisa committed to get us bungee jumping off the bridge. I mean, I ain't
Yes,
heard the Joe Biden of Bossier commit to no bungee jumping. Okay.
I think he's scared.
Well, he may be, but now look at this.
Wow.
I mean,
That's nice. I was at the concert too. I was,
were
let's
you?
see. Yeah, I was actually on the other side. I was on the
Yeah.
riverside.
Well,
Well, I had no idea that the reason that my wife and several of our friends had such a grand time at the Brooks and Dunn concert was all because of Tommy.
Well, just his post, read right there. He says,
Hmm.
"We are working to bring more big shows like this coming to Bossier City." Does that not imply that he was responsible, or whoever he and we are, that they did it?
He left out that had to have been Amanda or somebody writing that, so they kind of left that a little open in it. He didn't say he was directly responsible, but he's the mayor. He gets to take credit, kind of like, well, I don't know, whatever any politician does. They all do it.
But
They
I
they
don't know. He
deny
says
they
he
they
says,
deny the bad stuff, but they like to take credit for any of the positive stuff. And hey, it was Brooks and Dunn. I mean, I hadn't seen them in a long, long time, from back in the days when I listened to country music all the time. But they put on an
well,
exceptional concert, no doubt.
I mean, he didn't take credit for the Shed Road crossing closing down.
Of course not. That was
He
a negative.
Well, what about blaming NTB for, the failures there? Did he take credit for blaming NTB and then having to backtrack when they proved that that was false? Did he take credit for that?
Well, of course. Yeah. Look, it's like I said. He's only going to take credit for the good stuff and where they can do the pictures and the selfies. It's what politicians do.
I
And
mean, but
well,
he's the mayor. Why didn't he tell the public whose fault it really was rather than trying to blame somebody whose fault it wasn't?
well, that's true, but Kaylee Larkin brings up a point here, and I have no idea. But she says, sitting in that city suite funded by the taxpayers, no less, they should raffle tickets out to the taxpayers for the big show. So that kind of does bring up an interesting point. I wonder if Tommy was, in fact, in that suite. I mean, I couldn't really see all the way across there from the other side. And more importantly, if he's in a suite, that's great. More importantly, did he pay for that? Or did the city pay for it, or was it part of a deal with Brookshire's to be the grocery arena over
Now
there?
that is interesting. I didn't know that. So the
I,
city has a suite down there. I mean, I'm
I don't
wondering
know. Well, I'm asking the question.
who else is in the city suite.
I don't know. And if it's
Is
funded by the taxpayers, could we all go hang out?
Yeah, I wonder if NTB or Manchac is there.
Interesting. All right. So, Tommy, glad to see that you were at the concert as well. Hey, like I said, Brooks and Dunn, their music was great. They did a good job entertaining, and their eye candy with their graphics was phenomenal. Their
Okay, well,
multimedia was
Tommy,
great.
look, if you can get the Eagles, I mean, I'd like to see the Eagles. I mean, get the
Mm,
Eagles there since you're
oh,
calling the shots here and you're responsible for all. Get the Eagles.
while he's at it, just resurrect Elvis, bring Elvis back.
Oh boy,
Yeah. All
my
right.
my.
Yeah. So
Well,
anyway, back to the other stuff.
yeah, back to the serious stuff. Go to cut two. There's no limits, I think, to Tommy Chandler and taking credit. I mean, he's even taking credit for
Wait,
our athletes in Bossier.
and I'm not so much worried about that. But what is like the band getting back together with Cheatham and Tommy?
I I think we might be having an amigo reunion here. I don't
You know,
know.
who was it that sang that song "Reunited" back? What was that? 60s, 70s, "Reunited." Da 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 da. And of course, I'm a terrible singer, but maybe. Well, we would get hit for copyright violations, but maybe we should play that song as we show this picture.
Maybe so, maybe so. I don't know, but all I see is one guy with a City of Bossier emblem on his shirt, and the other guy, I can't read what's on there. I don't know.
Meant to be Tommy's friend, meant to be an amigo. I can't tell what it says here.
Yeah, well, it's no City of Bossier logo, so
Yeah. Oh, wait a
I
minute.
don't.
Good longtime friend of mine, Carrie Siska, says not to defend the mayor, but for Reba, he was in normal seating. Hey, he's out there sitting with the common folk. Maybe he
Yeah.
was at that concert. Like I said, I don't know.
Well, you know, the Joe Biden of Bossier may have been at the Brooks and Dunn concert, and he may have been here to take a photo op with a famous guy. But you know where he wasn't, Rex?
He wasn't reuniting with Shane and our other city
Well,
councilman at large.
well, I don't know about that. All I know is I see a picture of Shane with some athlete,
Hmm.
and I don't know if they're reuniting. But what I can tell you is where Tommy was not was at the redistricting meeting yesterday.
Oh, he wasn't. And I would like to point out that my mom says it was Peaches and Herb that sang Reunited. So thank you for that, Mom.
Yeah,
But so he
and
wasn't at
and
this
mom
redistricting.
and mom, we're going to work on him on that food, pushing it across the plate a little bit. We're working on him, so just hang in there.
It's a true story. She made me sit at the table for like 6 hours one time to eat my food on my plate
But
because I refused to eat.
but
It's a true story.
you gotta get over some of them things, Rex. You've got to
Uh,
see we're this
hey,
is a counseling session as well here.
I'll eat almost anything except for asparagus now. Doesn't matter what
You've
it is
got
now.
you got to let those little things go and move on.
I know you're right. That was a long. I was like 10. That was a long, long time. All right, but we
But hey,
digress again.
the Joe Biden and Bossier was not at the redistricting meeting. Isn't it interesting that he was not there to hear the comments of the public?
True, but let's face it. I mean, I guess they could have done some photo ops, and I imagine they probably did. So that would have been a plus for him to go to being on a
So,
photo op. But it doesn't affect the mayor, right? Yeah,
well,
he ain't really friends with any of the other city councilmen much anyway. So what difference does it make? Was he going to go buddy up to David? Oh, excuse me, King
well,
David. Sorry, David.
maybe we should have gotten Brooks and Dunn to go to the council meeting, or this athlete, or maybe our buddy there with the glasses. Maybe we should have got him to go to the. Maybe then Tommy would have went.
Wait a minute. Well, I'm going to ask our guest here in a minute. Was Shane not there?
That's a good question.
We'll find out. We'll ask.
We will.
All right.
So, so this special meeting, a lot of folks may not have paid attention, but it was the redistricting in Bossier City, and most folks probably aren't too worried about that. But there's been this undercurrent, and we talked about it in the last show, that there's the potential going to be for this lawsuit, and it stems around that some folks in the community, have articulated that there needs to be a second minority majority district in Bossier City. And, it's been suggested that if there's not, there's going to be lawsuits.
Mm,
Surprise, surprise.
surprise, surprise. It's what lawyers do. But that's kind
Yeah.
of interesting. Maybe we need to look up some demographics. But yeah, we'll talk about that. Oh, and by the way, I did not see that email that was mentioned that we may get. I have not seen that come in unless you have.
No, I have not either.
Okay.
I checked as well.
Okay.
So Chris Smith made a post earlier. I saw it and I put a link in our notes.
All right.
And he talked about the meeting. Boy, Bo is losing it. Somebody must be about to knock on my door and they're going to chew their leg off. So, note to anybody who wants to come visit my house, beware of the Chesapeake Bay Retriever.
He will gnaw your leg. All right, let me see if I can get that pulled up real quick. Let's see. Give me just a second. Let me push a couple of buttons
So,
here.
so they had this meeting yesterday, and it was a 6 p.m. meeting. And now, what is the rumor about 6 p.m. meetings and why they don't have 6 p.m. meetings?
Well, the rumor is supposed to be because nobody shows up for him, right? And that
Nobody shows
basically,
up. Well, how many people do you think showed up for this meeting?
well, I've heard that there were, I don't know, what, maybe 10, 20?
You would be wrong, and you heard
Uh-oh.
wrong. There
Don't
were
don't tell me it
somewhere.
was don't tell me it was crickets again.
No, 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 no. There was 30 to 40 people there.
Wow. Wow.
Big
Well,
turnout in Bossier City.
yeah. So, shall I go ahead and, since we're at the 7:20 mark, bring in somebody who was at that meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and jump to that.
Okay, so let me hit three
And
people on the screen, and let me send our guest over there. Let's see, she's going to be guest 2. Holly, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
We hear you just great. Audio sounds perfect. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
thanks for
So,
coming on, Holly, on short notice. There were a few folks that spoke, and you were one of them. And
Mhm.
Lee Jeter, there was another fellow with the NAACP, and then I think there was a doctor and yourself. And you had some pretty interesting comments. And Rex, I didn't want to cut you off. Did you have a?
no, go ahead.
Yeah, and you had some pretty interesting comments that were brought to my attention. I wasn't there, but yours jumped out at me the most. And what I'm told is that for the most part, you had a standing ovation, and everybody in the audience like cheered you on. What
I
could
was
you say
surprised.
at a boring redistricting meeting that could have fired people up so much?
I I I don't know. I mean, I think they probably just shared some of the frustration that I have, and so I think it was essentially. And I didn't realize they stood. I heard some people clapping, and I did have people come up to me afterwards to thank me for speaking. But I think it was about the time that I said it doesn't matter. We could have like 18 districts if they're not doing their job. It doesn't matter. You don't have the representation you need. And that's, pretty much how I feel. But I went to that meeting specifically to speak to maintaining at large seats, because I don't feel like a blanket approach is good for our city.
So what's your reasoning for uh, being in support of the at-large councilman?
So, what I shared with the council was that I moved into back to Bossier City after losing my husband, and um, the the most inexpensive place that I could move in a short period of time happened to be a trailer park. It's the one that got hit really bad in the tornado recently in South Bossier, because I was moving based on the school district. I literally went to a couple of different places to figure out where I was going to go put my daughter in school moving back after losing my husband. And so when I looked at who my reps were being, moved back in, I think it was in Bossier Now, there was an article where the candidates were interviewed. And Irwin, this is the time that Cheatham was running, and Irwin in this interview literally said his greatest political accomplishment was that he kept a trailer park from being built in South Bossier. And it infuriated me. Um, it just made me mad. So what I explained to the council was, this is what I had. This is who my rep was. So do you think I felt represented? Absolutely not. In addition to that, what I have seen of this council, and I explained, I can't come to the meetings because you don't have them at times that are conducive for anyone with a regular job. So I watch them all on YouTube. And it's incredible to me the way that you speak to the citizens of this town. It's insulting. And not only that, the way the councilmen speak to each other. And I said, I don't know what you guys are doing. Like, if there are walking quorums, because you never talk about anything, you shut it down. You're not shopping. It's always been this way. This is how it's going to be. And so, who feels like they have it? But at least with an at large, you have a shot. You have three chances, basically. You've got your rep, and then you've got your other two at large if you want to try to get something done. And so, and before I said all of that, I even asked, I said, I'm going to make a statement. I have some questions. One, I want you to talk about the impetus behind this today. They didn't address that. And then I said, because Jeter had asked Bubba, I don't know if he asked him directly or if he was just asking the council, basically kind of where they stood on things. And Bubba was like, I'm not going to tell you what my vote is. You Tuesday, that'll be my vote. So I said, what are you basing this on? Have you talked to the citizens? Like, what are you guys basing this decision on? And so the only councilman that spoke, because they weren't all there, it was half empty, but Chris spoke to what a day in the life of an at large was and explained that to the people, which I found reassurance in. And Bubba's response was, well, there's nothing wrong with living in a trailer park. I represent some of those. I have some clients that have those. And that was it. And it just I finally spoke up because I feel like if I don't, I don't have the right to complain about it. I can sit at home and I can complain, or I can, make my voice heard. And that's what I was trying to do. And what I was surprised at was the majority of the people who were there, it's my understanding, were actually the ones in favor of the redistricting, supported what I had to say. So it was a little ironic, but I think people just share the sentiment of the it is the good old boy network, and it has been that way, and it doesn't matter how you break it down. Um, if they're not good, then you're still not going to have representation.
Well, good for you. I mean, first thing is actually going to a meeting. I mean, that's 10 steps ahead of most of us. And number two, for speaking up and, sharing very clearly what your thoughts were. And then, of course, number three is, taking the chance to come on this show. and
Right.
again, and again, speaking your piece, and letting folks know what you think as a, you know, tax-paying Bossier City citizen. That's what it's all about. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
But
I
but do I
can't.
feel like it's actually going to make a difference? No.
Eh,
Not, I mean, I did see Chris's post that, he had not been reached out to or contacted, and that's, it's we talked a little bit about this, but I kind of feel like, especially I'm third generation Bossier, and I've lived all over the country. But I'm back here, and everybody knows how Bossier politics works. I mean, they just do, except the new ones who come here. And I don't think the city does a good enough job of sharing who their reps are. Like the website for our city is horrible. If you go to look like who your rep is, you don't know what they stand for, what their positions, or just anything. But I think those of us who've been here for a long time kind of know how things go. And you get to a point where you feel like, what does it matter? What does it matter? And that was my point with the guys or gentlemen yesterday when I spoke. What does it matter if I come up here and speak my mind? Because you're not going to listen to me. And, Joyner said that the meeting would be recorded. I haven't seen where it was anywhere, so I have questioned to the councilman and mayor who were not in attendance. How will you even know what was shared at that meeting yesterday and where the citizens stand that did take the time to get up and speak?
Now, you come across to me as being, just a regular citizen. And
I am.
and I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but
Right.
I think you are representative of the majority of folks out there. You're not political. You don't go and play in the political game all the time, and you finally gotten to a point to where you spoke your mind. Would you agree or disagree that you this is the haves and the haves nots? Is it about race or is it not about race? Because some people I think were there about race, but you were there about the haves and the have nots, right?
Correct. Correct. I mean, 100%, I believe there are still racial issues in our city, as there are in every city in the nation. Unfortunately, there will continue to be, um, at some level. But no, I wasn't there because of that, and I don't think that that's going to make a difference. To be candid with you, I truly don't believe that. I think if our at-large seats are taken away, then we run the risk of whoever those 2 reps are for those new 2 districts getting sucked into the game that's being played right now with our current council members, and things continuing to be the way that they always have, and not having that chance of, sometimes you just have people you don't click with. And so, and I think Chris even mentioned that there may be a personality clash. That wasn't my issue with Irwin. Mine was 100% disrespect. Um, so I didn't feel like my voice mattered to him. And it's interesting because I called him one time and he didn't call me back until I mentioned it on Facebook. And once I mentioned it on Facebook that I did not get a call back, then all of a sudden I got a message, a call that said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't, checked my voicemail and whatever." So my point with that is you have a shot with with at large if you don't connect with your rep. If you take that away with 7 districts, you just don't, and that doesn't mean it's gonna make things better.
Yeah, it's a valid argument, and I gotta say, I lean towards your side on maintaining the at-large candidates. Even though one of them's, well, he's not really my favorite politically, but he's great
Yeah,
entertainment and fodder for this show. So from that
right.
perspective, I really actually like King David. Um, but yeah, I pretty much lean towards your side, and I don't think it. I honestly don't think race is the biggest issue as well. I agree with you that there still are some racial issues, but I think that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem
Mm-mm.
is adequate, like you said, adequate representation. They don't want to do anything about anything or change their ways until it gets blasted on Facebook. Thank God for social media.
Right. And I think that's I do think that I can see and understand. And I did say, I think I opened with, I'm not opposed to change when I spoke. I can see how someone would not feel represented um, as a minority. I can completely understand that. But I don't think it is because that someone of a minority race could not run and win as in the districts that we're in now. I think it is just we have to fix what we have now and make it work before we make all these changes, because if you take what's going on with redistricting across the country, which is why I asked the question, what's the impetus? I wanted to hear from our council. Well, this is basically being forced on us because this is coming up all over the country in redistricting. So if if we
To,
fix what
to,
we have first, then
no,
we
no,
can
I,
look at it. But
you're, go ahead. Go ahead.
a blanket approach is not going to fix our situation, period. And I think that's why people don't feel represented, because the council is condescending and insulting, and they think we're just stupid citizens who don't have a right to really say anything because we just don't understand. And it's apparent through not only the language that they use with people who speak. And I mean, Settle doesn't have a stellar reputation, I get it, but it doesn't matter. It absolutely doesn't matter. He shouldn't be spoken to the way that he was. And so I can see it intimidating other people to not be able to speak their voice, or feel like if they do, it's not going to matter. So
Two points. Burgess Owens. Burgess Owens. Do you know what percent? I mean, he a black man in a majority white district. Do you know what the percentage of whites in his district are? It's over 70%. And
yeah,
tell me racism is a factor. So to that point, the other point is that I think I think in Bossier, this argument for minority districts, I think you might open a can of worms that you may not want. Has anybody considered the percent of Hispanic population that's in Bossier now? If Go ahead.
well, I was just say Joyner actually spoke to that last night, and he said when he was explaining kind of, and I wish it was recorded so that you could hear, because another point, he said the Hispanics kind of group together more, and they're not as spread out. Also in these numbers, he included, and he said he had to, I don't know where the had to came from, but children are included in these numbers for redistricting maps. I personally don't feel like that it should be that way. And especially if you look at our city and the rate of the children who leave. Like right now, as our city stands, and this is going to sound bad, but this is how I feel. I don't feel like my daughter, who will graduate in December, has a great future in Bossier. I just don't. I'm staying here with her to, and also to take care of my mother who's here, be close to her to help her. But when I think of the opportunities that are available in our city versus some of the others that we've lived in, I want her to have the best opportunities. And so I don't want her limited to here, and I don't feel like it's there's a ton of them here. So why are we including children in these counts also? Like how many are leaving as soon as they get out? That doesn't make sense to me, and it
Mm,
wasn't really explained very well. Maybe Lisa could share her thoughts on it, because she did ask from the seats. She asked questions about the population numbers and the numbers of the maps that he had.
interesting.
Yeah.
And I forget who it was pointed out that, well, they didn't spell Jimmy Davis right on the map. But anyway,
Right.
I, I
that's
think I think I think Lisa asked where was the most population growth in Bossier City.
Yeah,
Wasn't
that's what
that?
she. Hmm.
Do you recall the answer?
I just remember him talking about well, he said, I wrote down some notes in the beginning. He said our population had increased by about 1,800, but the largest increase has been outside of the city limits. And he explained that we were like a dumbbell and that the growth explosion is the North and South Bossier, and then Barksdale was kind of the like center of the dumbbell. And that's where the population's going.
So it sounds to
Lisa,
me like there was some very interesting information shared at that meeting. I'm assuming you learned quite a bit.
I did, and he did not they did not initially have the stats up on the city, but she said that she would upload all of his numbers that he had behind the maps to the city website. I didn't see those today, but maybe I just missed them.
Duke, what
now
were you gonna say?
Lisa, well, Lisa, we know you're watching, but I think Joyner reported that District 1 in South Bossier, as it stands in the current city of Bossier, had the most growth. Is that correct or incorrect? Well, don't text and drive, obviously.
Yeah, Lisa just said, let me put this up on the screen. Lisa said, Duke, I am here, but driving to Baton Rouge, I have two meetings. Yeah, don't do the whole text and drive thing. A, you might get a ticket. B, is a little
Well,
dangerous.
the
I
point I was going to make is if District 1 in South Bossier is in fact the fastest growing, that's all the more reason for us to have bungee jumping off the Jimmy Davis Bridge.
Yes. Hey, so we need to ask Holly. Holly, have you ever bungee jumped?
I have not, but I'm all in if it
That's
happened.
that's all I need to hear. You're my favorite guest now.
I did see Lisa just popped up the comment that you put on there that it was the census that he had to count the children, but he also mentioned that children are considered disenfranchised voters when you are doing these districting maps, which
What?
I don't agree with either.
Wait
That's
a
what he
minute.
said. He said
That
children are considered disenfranchised voters for the purposes of these redistricting maps.
So that would be interesting to look at the demographics and the birth rates across the various ethnicities and all that through the city. That's very interesting as well. I was not aware of
Hmm.
that. I'm learning a lot on this show.
I
Yeah.
see Elon Musk coming soon.
Okay. So is there anything else that you would like to share from the meeting? Anything else that you feel that, the folks watching should know? Because we got about 100 people watching right now. Um,
I just hope that people share not so much my frustration, but my kind of feeling of a call to action. Like the comments about, hey, you really need to be at the meetings because it matters. I get the I understand the frustration of feeling like things have just are going to continue to be how they are because these guys are doing, what they've always done. But I do believe that our voting numbers are so low, and it's so sad to me to see, just and it's also kind of comical because of some of the arrogance of some of the council members. I mean, they're really, really little fish. I don't think there's been more than like 3,000 votes for one of them, so they shouldn't be too arrogant about it. But I do hope that people, you know, get get active and do something, even if it's just emailing over and over and over your rep if you can't make it to the meetings. Because I think the reason on a national level that things have gotten how they are and our political climate is what it is because people just kind of got complacent, and if it didn't directly impact them on their daily basis, if it didn't touch them, then they didn't feel like they needed to be involved, and I'm guilty of that. But I'm not going to do that moving forward. I'm going to do whatever's necessary to make sure that Bossier is a place where I want my child to stay, not that I want to encourage her to leave to go somewhere else for better opportunity. And there's a lot of things that need to happen, for that, but you have to start somewhere. And so even if it's, 10 of us at a meeting next time and trying to push the new councilmen to try to do a resolution again to get the meeting changed. Or maybe we can get, questions submitted by citizens via, email before the meetings, just something so that they know we're listening and there is something that we can do. And that's about it.
Amen to that.
God bless you, Holly. I wish we could clone you.
So,
Yeah,
well, I'm
and
raising a daughter, so
well,
she'll.
raise her to be like you. And let me just say
Yeah.
this as well. You know, I always tell people that look, it's taken decades, or I forget when Bossier was founded, but it's taken 100 and some odd years or whatever for Bossier to be in the shape that it is right now. It can't be fixed in a day, but it
Right.
starts with little things like you're doing. Instead of just watching, going to the meeting, asking questions, coming on social media, interviewing with the news media, whether they publish it or not. Those are steps that, while they're, seem small and you wonder if they're really worth it, they are worth it. And eventually it will pay off. You're welcome back on this show anytime, or if you go to a meeting and want to come share something with us, just reach out and let us know.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm so grateful that I stumbled on you guys sometime last year. I don't even remember how, but I love to watch on Tuesdays and when you do your Thursdays show. And it made me feel like I wasn't alone when I found your show. Like I actually found people that were, interested in these things and speaking about it. And so it's given me a little boost of confidence that I didn't have. So thank you guys for that.
Hey, the thanks all goes to you for doing your part as well. It's easy
Yes,
for us to
Holly.
get up here and preach.
Yeah. Thank you for stepping up and going and speaking. I mean, hopefully, folks will, use you as an example and follow in your footsteps.
Well, thank you. I'm not done. I'm just getting started.
All right. Well,
Awesome.
we're glad to have you on. We'll go ahead and not to be rude, but we'll go ahead and disconnect
Sure.
you, and we'll move on to some other topics and all that. And again, you're welcome back anytime. Just reach out to us.
Thank you guys. Have a good one, and
All
I'll
right.
hop off and watch.
All right. Thanks a
Thank
lot,
you.
Holly.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye. I'm like inspired. I'm sitting here learning on the show. I just needed to move over to the guest position and let her take over the pilot's chair over here.
Yeah. I mean, a regular citizen shows up to a council, semi quasi council meeting and has an impact.
Yeah.
And, you know, she, I heard things I didn't know right
Yeah.
there. I mean,
I
there's
didn't know
100
that they
people
were
watching.
I didn't know that they were counting the children as disenfranchised voters, according to Gary Joyner's apparently what he said. So that's very interesting to me.
Imagine if just 20 people like her took up issues and started trying to
Yeah.
do something. I
And
mean,
that
my goodness, imagine what could be done.
yeah, and those 20 people convinced one or two friends each, and those convinced one, and it just
And
starts growing exponentially.
and I don't know. You said Bossier. It's taken decades for Bossier to get the way it is, and I, I take sort of issue. Not everything's bad about Bossier.
Right?
I
No,
mean,
I agree.
there's a lot of good things about Bossier, but I think like what Holly was enunciating was that she didn't like the disrespect to the citizens, and is what I took what she was saying, that she felt disrespected.
Yeah, and when I say it, that it's taken decades or whatever for Bossier to get this way, I'm talking about politically, where just like you mentioned, where she doesn't feel like her elected officials are being respectful of her, or her situation in life, and what she needs and pays and expects from the government to do. you know doesn't mean that she's trying to be needy on the government. It's literally what they're elected to do, some of this. And that's what I mean. Other than that, look, there's a lot of great people in Bossier. I mean, I'm not from Bossier, but we've actually enjoyed living here. But politically, look, she said it better than you or I probably have ever said it. It's the good old boys network.
Agreed.
We didn't coach her to say
Agreed.
that before the show, people. What she said, that's her own deal.
Oh yeah. Now Lisa Johnson pulled over, so I think we would be
Uh,
neglectful if we didn't share. She took the time to pull over,
and let's get Amigo out of the way and Tommy there.
but I
Oh,
want to
and
go back to this redistricting thing after we get through showing this post.
yeah, so I'm gonna shrink this down just a little bit. So Lisa says I pulled over to share a little bit of information. Dr. Joyner said our heaviest population growth is to the south and to the north. See there, people, I wasn't crazy about the north-south issue. I'm not crazy. Not that much. All right. However, the South will need to grow along the highway because of the proximity to Barksdale Air Force Base and to prevent encroachment. I'm not really sure what the little symbol is. But anyway, and as we have seen, heavy growth has been in the northern part of the city. The center part of the city is losing population, but it is also gaining in cultural and entertainment value to support this growth to the north and to the south within the city limits. Please excuse any grammatical errors. No problem, Lisa. And we're glad that you pulled over to actually type that as you were headed down to the southern part of the state.
Yeah. So, kind of wrapping this up a little bit, but so Bossier tomorrow, they're going to have another meeting on this redistricting thing, and it'll be at 2 p.m. tomorrow. And they're actually going to vote on whether or not they're going to move to a 7 straight districts or retain the 5 districts with the 2 at large districts. They're
So,
going to vote on it tomorrow.
so I got to ask you, what side of the coin do you fall on this, or do you want to share it?
Well, originally I was a 7 district guy,
Right.
and I don't know. Truth of the matter is, I could kind of go either way. I see there. I think there's valid arguments for both sides of the equation. But after hearing, a story like Holly's, I got to tell you, I'm kind of going back on the other side. But I think we would, we would be being neglectful if we didn't address the elephant in the room. Now, Lee Jeter is the NAACP representative, and we shot him a message and asked him to come on tonight. He had another engagement, and he said that he would send us a comment. We've not yet received that comment, but so, you know, our understanding is that either way, whatever the city does, the NAACP are going to sue the city regardless because they believe there should be 2 mandatory minority districts. However that is, and
Two out of 7 total.
2 out of 7 total.
So their position is keeping, to make sure I'm clear, is keeping 7 total districts, and they should have 2 that are majority minority.
Well, and that having at-large representatives is inherently racist.
Wait a minute. All right. Do we have any reasoning for that?
I don't know, because supposedly it's because the likelihood of a minority winning an at-large district is essentially impossible because the majority of people in the city are white. So therefore, a black can't have a chance to win. So that therefore is racist.
Well, I got so many comments for that.
But my thing is, it's always black and white. It's always black and white.
Yeah, and let's be clear. This commentary did not come from Lee Jeter. We just transitioned into this. So,
we wanted to try to make sure exactly where they were heading with this, but it's always black and white. So if let's say that was correct, let's say that at larges, are race. It's racist to have at larges, and it disenfranchises blacks. Well, what about the other minorities? What about the Hispanic? Do you know that I think there's almost an 11% Hispanic community? What about them?
Oh yeah, well, I'm not going to make these comments. So yeah, the NAACP is doing what I would expect the NAACP to do. Now, let me explain my reasoning behind that. So simple math says that if there are 7 districts, and I'm going to use 20%. I haven't looked up the demographics for Bossier City in very recently, so somebody can look it up real quick and correct me if I'm wrong. But the black or African American, whatever, population is generally, I believe, around 20%. I think I'm close with that. Now, I'm not counting Hispanic population as well. I think it's around 20% nationally, and I think Bossier falls in pretty nationally. So if that's the case, then that's 1.4 seats.
Yeah. So
I mean,
you got to
unless my
ask.
math is wrong.
No, 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 no. I went through the same thing. Jason Angle made a post. He says, "I'll say it: the 11% Hispanic community can't vote." I,
Well, it's in the comments, so
it's in there. So, but everybody watching, it kind of makes you wonder. Well, if Bossier is such the racist city that it is, with having these at larges, where do we stand across the rest of the state? Isn't that a valid question?
well, and look, I'd like to circle back because we had the District 1 candidates, when they were running for Scott Irwin's vacated seat or whatever. Anyway, we had them on a debate, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And so we had Darren Ashley on, who is obviously a minority candidate. And I thought he did great in the debate. I'm not sure we agree 100% politically, but honestly, a lot of what he said falls in line, with what I would tend to believe. But and he had as good a shot as any at winning. The problem was in District 1, I think it's heavily Republican. Correct me if I'm wrong, District 1 folks. And so his chances of winning just based on party were slim to none. So on the flip side to that, okay, the minority community tends to vote heavily Democratic. So really and truly, if the NAACP were really worried about redistricting, they would be trying to follow party lines, not necessarily racial lines.
Well, I wasn't going to point that out, but since you bring this all up, it begs the question, and I'm going to ignore the comments because I'm about to die laughing here. I couldn't even focus on what you were saying because of Kevin Rigsby. But
I'll try to catch up
so
while you're commentating. Go ahead.
what it begs the question, what is the structure of other municipalities across the state? Do you have any idea?
I honestly don't right off the top of my head. It's been a long day.
So, if having at larges is inherently racist, so did you know that there are 36 municipalities across the state that have at large districts? Did you know that? Or wait a minute. There's 36 municipalities.
Mm-hmm.
Of those 36, how many do you believe have at large districts?
Oh, I would just be guessing, but I'll just say, you said how many of them are there? 30, how many?
36 municipalities,
34.
19.
Oh, well, I was way off. Well,
There's 19 of 36 municipalities have, at large districts.
So what would be
So,
more interesting to that, which I don't, I'm guessing you probably hadn't done or didn't have time or whatever, is to look at the demographics of each of those 19.
well, actually, it did do a little bit. And there's some examples of some, municipalities like Alexandria, Natchitoches, Bogalusa, and New Orleans. Every
Oh,
one of those that I named all have at larges. And do you know what the majority population is in those municipalities?
I'm going to assume majority minority.
Majority black.
Well, what would be even
Now,
more interesting is to see if the NAACP had ever filed any lawsuits against having the at-large candidates in those municipalities.
well, that's what I'm wondering is that
Hmm.
if they're going to sue Bossier City and say Bossier City is being racist, then that means that in New Orleans, they're going to have to sue for the minority population in New Orleans, right?
Oh, no, that's not the way it works, Duke. You know that.
Well, I mean, and in Bogalusa and Natchitoches and Alexandria, are we not going to ensure that the minority population is equally represented?
Well,
Right? Are we not going to do that?
no. I don't have a better answer. I can say this, that um, having known Lee Jeter for a couple of, or several years, he's on the Democratic PEC. He's also I'm sure a member of the NAACP and all that. If he's able to come on or send us a statement or position, I feel that he will be straight up about it, and he will be a great guest to maybe give us a little bit different perspective and reasoning. Even if we don't agree, at least we would have that as well. So, Lee, if you watch this later on, we would really look forward to you coming on the show and giving us some other things to think about as to why having that large councilman is supposedly inherently racist.
Yeah, because I'm not buying it at this point. Because at this point, this is strictly a white and black debate. And,
Right.
if that is valid, explain to
Well,
me. And Jeff Sadow Jeff Sadow wrote a great article, and he points out the fact about Tim Scott in a majority white, I mean, way white,
mm-hmm.
and Burgess Owens, way white, and even Mitch Landrieu in New Orleans, he's white. I mean, how do all these black folks win in all these big white districts? It's not about
I can
it's
answer
not
that
about the
question with
color.
I
It's
can
about
answer that
their
question with two
platform, what they believe, and what they stand for.
I can answer that question with two words.
Okay.
Uncle Tom. That's what the
And
claim always is from a certain political persuasion. And so I'm not saying that's true. I'm just repeating what is always. It's the soundbite. It's the buzzwords. Uh,
yeah,
very
well,
interesting.
I would argue that we're all going to be paying $6.50 to $7 a gallon gas here real soon, and I don't know
Mm-hmm.
that differentiates between white and black. I really don't.
So David Womack asks, "Is that Alice Jeter's son?" I'm not sure, David. I know I've heard Lee mention his mother before in some other conversations because he was also on the uh, board of election supervisors or whatever for both pairs too. So I've had several meetings. Anyway, so I'm not really sure, David. May very well be. Uh, yes, Jason, we're getting to that. I wouldn't call it an I wouldn't call him an elephant. I would call him something. Well, I can say this because it's in the Bible. I would call him an ass.
Okay, but before we get to First Church, in which we're right there real close, for just a moment, we've got to do a public service announcement here for everybody to make sure that y'all don't get caught and get yourself in a bind.
Oh,
Because
okay.
you could get yourself in a little bit of a problem if you aren't in the know. So Rex,
Yes.
do you, when you're out jogging every morning, and I know sometimes you like to go, what? You don't jog?
Well, I have this
No.
theory that God allowed us to have engines for a reason. The ones in our trucks and the ones behind our boats.
Okay, let me try again. Let me try again.
Okay.
Okay. So when you go out in the mornings to bird watch,
Yeah. Okay. If that's what you want to call it, but
you
okay.
don't bird watch. Okay.
No,
Okay. Okay.
if I'm going to go out and look at birds in the morning, I want to see them falling.
Okay. 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 Let me try again. So when you go out to go kayaking, oh dang. Okay.
All right, here I'll paint you a picture. So let me tell a quick little story. I'll make this real quick. So I was fishing in an area of Caddo Lake called Hog Wallow, and one entrance to the Hog Wallow area is a little ditch that's about a boat width and a half wide. And so you idle off of Alligator Bayou through this little ditch to get into Hog Wallow. Well, so I got in, went in there, caught some fish. I was coming back out. It was getting close to dark, and I couldn't idle through the ditch because there was a pontoon boat there filled with predominantly Asian folks with really nice cameras and really long lenses. And it was one of the pontoon tour boats. And you see this frequently. And not just Asian folks are on the pontoons, but pretty heavy percentage. I guess they come over from, I don't know, Japan or wherever. Anyway, so they're all sitting there and they've got these cameras pointed up to in this tree. So I thought they'd actually, they'd seen Bigfoot and they're taking pictures of Bigfoot. No, they were taking pictures of an owl. Do you know how many owls I've had attack me while I'm on Caddo? I have video of this. And they're
Wow.
sitting there all worried. And so I had to wait. I was nice. I waited about 10 or 15 minutes, let them take their pictures.
Well,
Anyway.
did you know that if in theory they were on that pontoon taking pictures of an owl
Mm-hmm.
in a wildlife management area and they didn't buy a permit they would be in violation of the law?
Wait a minute. Hold on. So I'm looking at our notes. Let me see. Do we have? Oh, we do have a cut for that. Good. No,
Yes, we
I
do.
did not know that. So let me switch screens
Did,
for us again.
so did you know that, like, since I was a kid, when I was growing up, since I was a kid, whenever we'd have the, and I did it a year or two ago when we had, remember when we had the big snow?
Yeah.
Everybody would go to bod call, and we would, I mean, a Coke sign, a whatever, cardboard, we would go down the hills
Yeah.
in the
Well,
snow.
hey,
I put video.
fun fact. The first video I ever shot with a drone, I just got my drone in like 2 days before that ice storm hit. I took it to Bodcall and videoed my boys and a whole bunch of other people going down the dam. We got our hydro slides out, did it the redneck way, and actually got some awesome footage.
Well, did you have your access permit?
Well, no, I did not.
Well, if you and everybody in your party went out there as of June 1st and you didn't have your access permit, I think the possum cops could write you a ticket.
Now, I knew that they were pretty strict, especially if you were hunting and you had to fill out your little, game deal, when you came in. I did not know that now, apparently, as of June 1st, you need an access permit. Well, Duke, I mean, they've got to have some kind of
Well,
income and revenue to keep up the WMAs. It's not like, they get any tax dollars. It's not like our
okay,
tax dollars
well,
help build all that.
okay, well. Look, I'm. We're going to go there, but I wanted to read that first sentence here.
Okay.
Any wildlife management area, refuge, or conservation area for any reason, and it gives some examples: boating, hiking, bird watching, berry picking, fishing, or hunting.
Wow.
You got to have that permit. And I think if I read down there, $20 annually or something like that.
Well, yeah, but just think about the deal you're getting. For $20, you get to do all of those various things. I mean, you may want to go bird watching. Maybe I want to go pick blackberries. We could do either one for the low, low price of $20.
Now, the way this thing reads is before, if you were hunting or fishing, you had to have this anyway. Now, admittedly, I didn't realize that,
Hmm,
but it makes one wonder, why is it that the hunters and fishermen were penalized prior to now?
that's a good question. And
So
I'm trying to read through this. So go ahead.
So, like, at first glance, and the reason I'm pushing this, Rex, is because some people may end up. I hope Wildlife and Fisheries starts enforcing this. Because here's the thing, and I went down when I went down to the legislature and
Right.
I argued on a part of this bill that where made this change. But other states, we do so little for our natural resources in the terms of wildlife management areas and all of that. Uh, we don't do enough. Other states like Oklahoma, they contribute a ton of money
Mhm.
into their wildlife management areas and such, and we don't. I mean, do I have any faith that Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries is going to adequately use the money to make our wildlife management areas? No, I don't. I don't have a lot of faith in it. But if the substandard shape that all of our wildlife management areas is in and have been, and the backlogs of maintenance that needs to be done is because of a lack of resources, that excuse is off the table now. And everybody, if you use the resource, now some people, I mean, on one side of it, some people are going to say, you know what, we already paid for all of that. Why should we have to be paying for it again? You know what? That's a valid argument. Yeah, you already have, and government shouldn't have property. I can
They
get
own
that
a
one as
lot of
well too.
property. So
Yes,
that
they
makes me
do.
wonder because, me and the boys used to go to the Bodcall shooting range all the time. I had the boys in the NRA's, what's called the YHEC program for several years. And, we were going to Bodcall pretty much every weekend, going to the shooting range. So I, I guess I guess it would cost you $20 a year to have access to the shooting range now too, because it says for any reason.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Tim Mueller, great point, Tim. I mean, he lived in Michigan for years. He's right. There's a lot of other states that I mean, they don't balk at spending a little bit of money, for their wildlife management areas and conservation areas. They spend money on it, and it's shameful. The state that Louisiana has let their areas get into. Um, I don't like paying taxes any more than anybody else, but you know what? To have these type areas and to have them in great condition and great shape, I'll spend more money. In fact, I mean, I bought lifetime licenses for myself and all of my kids and all of that. And as a side note, if you have a lifetime license, guess what? You don't ever have to pay this.
Oh, so one of the perks, again, a value add to the proposition, is lifetime license. You don't have to pay the extra $20. Wow.
That's right.
They're upselling. It's like a game show or a car dealership. I don't know. And look, I'll say this, and again, I'm just using Bodcall because it's the closest WMA to me. Look, we've used Bodcall before. My boys have deer hunted out there. I've gone out there and squirrel hunted several times. Again, we used to use the shooting range, and the guys out there do their best to try to keep it up. But I'll say, even this with the shooting range, there was a time there when the rumor was they were fixing to close the shooting range down, and a lot of us have volunteered and to help in the past and do everything that we could. This is 6, 8, 10 years ago, to try to help keep that shooting range open, and they have improved it since then. So I'll give them credit for that. And I don't think it's necessarily the guys, the boots on the ground wildlife and fisheries guys. This is coming from the political side of it.
Yeah, and it's Baton Rouge, no doubt about it. But
All right.
enough on wildlife and fisheries. Can we get to
Well,
the meat and potatoes?
yeah, we can, but I want to bring up two quick points. Let's see, maybe one. Anyway, David Johnson says he's going to have permits at the jet ski stand, also fishing licenses, maybe Duke. We should also charge a permit to
Now,
bungee jump, in addition to the cost of bungee
now,
jumping.
now that does bring up a kerfuffle because David Johnson committed to have the boats down there to pick you up on the bungee jumping, right?
Oh,
But
yes, he
David, we got a
does.
problem. We got a problem, David. I think your business proposition is going to be outdated. Isn't
Yeah,
that right, Rex?
I think it is. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can get this screenshot over here. Just a second. Hold on. I
So,
don't.
so for those of you watching, with the Jimmy Davis Bridge, we've done got, Kyle Ardwan, he's committed to bungee jump off Jimmy
Hmm.
Davis with us. You know, Lisa Johnson, she's going to bungee jump off the bridge with us.
Right.
Um, Chandler, he's non-committal, in which we promised Tommy we'll leave our knives at the house. We won't
Yeah.
bring them.
Yeah.
David Johnson committed to be at the bottom in the water to have boats available to pick us up. But that
Yes.
leaves a problem. How are we going to get back to the top to
Yeah.
be able to do it again?
Yeah. How are we going to do that? Now, folks, I know this is a little difficult to see, so I'm trying to get my little pointer over there to show. But this is from our good friend John Settles, Focus SB magazine, back, I think, on June the 10th. But I want to point out right here, right where I got this finger pointing. Again, I know it's not easy to see, but this this is listing the things that let me get this out of the way for a second so I can read this. So anyway, this article is dealing with key provisions of the MOU, the MOU or MOU or whatever, Memorandum of Understanding. And so it goes through and lists the responsibilities of the parties. That would be City of Shreveport, City of Bossier City, Caddo Parish Commission, and the Bossier Parish Police Jury agree to work together in good faith, blah, 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 to achieve their shared objective of day-to-day operations of the Jimmy Davis Linear Park, which include providing adequate trash receptacles, emptying those, sweeping, and other maintenance required to keep the area free and clear of any debris. Now, here's the important part. The Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development will be responsible for restructuring the existing Jimmy Davis Bridge to include, but not limited to, A, painting, B, concrete deck surfacing, C, designating a walking, biking paths, D, lighting, and here we go, E, installation of elevator on both sides, as well as the next item, parking on both sides. Folks, did y'all know that we were getting elevators now on the Jimmy Davis Bridge? Duke, at first I thought, why do we need elevators? People can just walk up. But I think you're right. We can bungee jump even faster. We could sell more tickets. We could charge more bungee jumping fees faster because we can just, bungee jump, go down there, elevator back up, bungee jump again, wash, rinse, repeat. Thank you, state of Louisiana.
I'm excited about bungee jumping off of Jimmy Davis. I am. We'll see. It's still up in the air. I don't know what's going to happen. Elevators and the state's going to pay for them. We'll see. I'm told Shreveport's out. I'm told Shreveport and Caddo have tapped out.
Yeah.
If it's going to happen, it's all on Bossier City. So if y'all agree that Bossier should foot the whole deal, take all the responsibility, then I don't know.
Hey, Greg Bell has a good comment. He says, a quick search of catapult people is interesting. We'll have to do that later. Man, that sounds like we could come up with a great logo. Instead of calling it bungee jumping, we'll call it catapulting. Elevator catapulting. Catapulting with elevators. I don't know. We need to come up with this marketing. And David, you need to get a dock or a pier built down at the base of the Jimmy Davis Bridge, so that as we bungee jump and then land in the water, hit the water, well, whatever's going to happen, we can climb up on the pier, get in the elevator, and go back up. And you can sell snow cones and lemonade, so we can have that on the way back up in the elevator. All right. Anyway, I digress. So again.
Well, I think we're at the point of wrapping up. Do you think this will be the end of First Church? No, that we talk about? No, something tells me not.
Well, when you said the end of First Church, I was like, uh-oh. And so, again, I just want to be clear, folks. Whenever we talk about First Church, what we affectionately call First Baptist Bossier, it's not against, or at least from my perspective, and Duke, I think you agree with me, it's not against the church itself. It just happens to be against the leadership. And our perspective, again, you've heard us say this over and over, our tie to this is because that church has weaponized its political affiliations and tie-ins in the past. It just has. And other than that, I wouldn't care how many soccer fields Brad built. I really wouldn't.
You know what I think the thing is for me, and I've always found it egregious, is the lights, the show, the big church. It's like the church is building these walls. You're trying to build a church that's like a castle, and you're trying to build this castle to keep your people in and prevent people from coming in. That's almost what it seems like to me. And I don't like that theory, and I don't like that ideology. I don't like it in my faith, because I don't think that's what it's about. I think it's about you're supposed to be trying to bring people in, right?
Well,
and it almost seems like it's the opposite.
Well, let me give you my perspective, and so I don't totally disagree with you, but I've helped several churches from time to time with their technology and their lighting and all that, and no big mega churches or anything like that, but I have studied a lot of the larger churches that are very successful and have high numbers of members. And I know it's not about counting people, but honestly it is, because, the great calling and the Great Commission is to go out as Christians and convert more people to Christ, right? And so it is about numbers to some extent.
To go out? You said go out.
Well, okay, so in that place, I guess these churches are trying to draw in, but same principle. Let me finish.
Well, competition is about having the biggest church and the best light show and all this crap.
But let me give you,
turns my stomach.
Let me give you a quote from, I believe the pastor's name is Greg Rochelle, pastor of a large church in Oklahoma. And he was addressing this fact one time. This was a couple of years ago in either one of his sermons or a podcast. I can't remember. But anyway, he said, look, it's pretty simple. He said, His calling is to get people to the church so they can hear the message of Christ. Now, what happens after that is between the individual and God. Okay? And whatever relationship they may or may not build with Christ. He said, so that means I'll put a Ferris wheel out in front of the church if it will attract more kids, which gets their parents in the front door where at least they can hear the message. Then it's up to God. Now, I'm not saying that's the correct way. I'm not saying it's the incorrect way. There are lots of things that can happen, and we've seen it, around here, obviously. But I'm just telling you that if the heart of the leadership is in the right place, I'm not opposed to the big churches. I absolutely see your point. It's not about a show. Look, I hate to pick on the soccer field because the soccer field is a good thing and it provides a good place for, kids to come in and play soccer. And I don't know what all age groups that they have there. And that may bring some parents in who otherwise might not set foot on church property. And maybe when those people do, so I'm giving them a little bit of benefit of the doubt here, maybe some of those parents, even if it's just one of them, out of however many people, even if it's just one, hears the message and accepts Christ into their life. How is it worth it? How do you judge that?
Right. Tim Mueller, he makes a great post. At what number do you stop adding members? 100, 200, 300.
That's my point.
From that, I'm going to say my thought on that. From a fireman in perspective, it goes back to span of control. What number of men can you effectively manage at one time to be able to work in an emergency situation? The same thing. At what number of people can a pastor shepherd his flock? What number? Can one pastor manage 300? Can he manage 1,000? Can he manage 1,500, 2,500? And if he can, is he doing an effective job? Does he need a Ferris wheel to be able to maintain their attention?
Well, let me just turn it back to the fire department. See, folks, we don't always agree 100%. So all the firemen, the acronym is BCFD, right? Bossier City Fire Department, right?
All right.
How many fire captains are there?
One for every unit.
How many units are there?
I don't know how many Tahoes they got now.
Okay.
Good grace, I don't know.
Does the fire department send their trucks into parades?
Yeah, occasionally, yeah.
Do the fire department guys go out there with their boots in the middle of traffic lights and, raise money for, I forget what the cause is usually, forgive me, but do they do that as well?
Yeah, that's male pattern baldness, but it didn't work.
Yeah, okay, it didn't help. All right. So anyway, my point is, and I hate to sound like I'm defending Brad, because I'm not defending Brad. I'm defending churches in general. Just like I agree with you that how, can one person effectively lead that many? No, but that's where if you have the right staff and you don't run them all off from your church, Brad, then you can manage that. I don't remember Jesus telling the disciples, go out among the masses and spread the good word, but limit it to 10. 10 per disciple, that's it.
Yeah, and look, I'm not against big churches, but I think the bigger you get, the more susceptible you are to losing your path. You start relying on Ferris wheels, and in this case, I'm going to say politicians. And I know I can share a picture with you of a room with David Vitter, with who's that other senator that we have right now that voted for red flag laws or is about to?
What's that guy's name? Casper, the ghost.
A current sitting congressman, a state representative that's going to run for Senate in Bossier, and another elected official sitting over there in the corner, one assistant city attorney. I mean, a room full of politicians. You see where I'm going? I'm saying you start.
On that we agree 100,000%.
But what's the difference between a Ferris wheel and that? If that's what it takes to build my congregation, that I can show that I have the ear of all the politicians, I have all the power.
He's at least has a circus listening to him. You're what is the difference? Well, one's a circus.
So look, so when we're getting on First Church here tonight, I mean, a lot of folks, there's been a lot of folks, and there's been a lot of social media commentary, and Pastor Brad and his, we'll show that in a little bit, and we'll kind of talk about that. But there's been some folks saying that, uh, cut four, that you know what, it is, it's not right for Christians to sue a church in court,
Yeah, I've
and
read some of
they
that commentary.
cite right here.
Yeah. So now this is from the NIV version. For those of you that don't go to church that much, that would be the New International Version. And if you're not familiar with all of that, there's the King James, the NIV. There's a couple of dozen different versions now. But anyway, lawsuits among believers. This is 1 Corinthians 6, 1 through 8. If any of you has a dispute with another, do you dare take it before the ungodly for judgment instead of before the Lord's people? My first problem with that question is, how do you determine whether some of the people that you would take it before for judgment are godly or not? What if they're Christians on the jury or, in the court system?
And or the judge, agreed.
And
And you
let's
go ahead.
define the word judge. So to judge something means to make a discernment of it. Okay, now there's a biblical judge, which is, but technically when we say that, we're really talking about condemnation or condemning someone to hell. I'm not trying to condemn Brad to hell or any such nonsense. That's certainly not mine or anybody else's role. That's between him and God.
Well, it raises a question. What about cut five? And so that's the NIV version. What about King James version?
All right. Well, let me read the other highlighted verse here that you
Yeah,
have in
go
the
ahead.
NIV. So where's that? Verse 6 says, "But instead, one brother takes another to court, and this in front of unbelievers." All right. And what was the next one? 7?
Cut five.
Or cut 5, I'm sorry. All right, here we go. So I'll read this one too. So this is out of the King James, 1 Corinthians 6, 1 through 8. Highlighted here, verse 4, if then ye have judgments of things pertaining to this life, set them to judge who are least esteemed in the church.
Now that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
So one person is advocating that, and of course the terminology in the King James version and the NIV version are a little bit different, but this right here was not even in the NIV version. And I'm wondering, in the case, because somebody used the NIV version saying that it's unchristian for all of these folks to be filing this lawsuit. That was what they were being made, and saying that it wasn't right. Well, I mean, I don't know if that's completely accurate. And in the case of First Church, this right here is saying the least esteemed in the church. Was the problems at First Church were the least esteemed in the church? Did they even get a shot to look at the situation or make a discernment?
I
Right?
mean,
If you're not
maybe
supposed to go to the court.
maybe they did. I mean, look, the truth is, I was not at any of those church gatherings where any of this was done. Duke, as best I know, you weren't really either. So we're asking for those of you that are current or former members, you shared out with us before, but, how was this handled? Was it handled just among church leadership? Was it completely top down? Brad laid down the law and everybody else fell into place? Was it put before the congregation?
So either way, whether it was the NIV version or the King James version that is applicable here, I take issue a little bit because, you know, Corinthians was wrote by Paul, right?
Right.
And he was writing a lot of stuff during that time, and he was traveling from city to city, and going to all the different churches. And I mean, I think in that time and way he was writing things, he wasn't writing things about church bylaws. He was writing things about cows and chickens and goats, and them trading amongst themselves. That
Right.
that was what he was talking about. And I think if I'm correct, when he was talking about, the Corinthians in particular, they actually were using the church, I mean the judges and the judicial system to get over on other Christians, right?
Well,
That
yeah. Hence, one of my favorite, you know, uh, uh, verses or set of verses in the Bible, which is, when Jesus flipped over the tables and, literally fashioned his own weapon, and ran out the money changers. But as you go and you study that, and I'm no Bible scholar, and I'm sure Tim Euler is probably cringing to hear us, do a little Bible discussion here. But that was because the money changers were using the church, or the entrance, and having to pay the what was it, tax or fee or whatever it was, and there was an exchange rate, and they were using that basically to cheat people. And so that's when Jesus really got pissed off and flipped over the tables after he fashioned his own whip and started chasing them out with the whip. So those of you that think Jesus was a complete pacifist, just remember, he fashioned his own whip. He sat there and made his own weapon. All right. Anyway.
Yeah, so while we're at it, so Paul, while he wrote Corinthians, what about Romans? Remember that one? Go to cut
Yeah.
6.
Let's go to
I
cut
think
6.
there's an interesting line in cut 6. So for the people that are having reservations about the right or wrong of whether or not, taking it uh, to court or not, I'm wondering about this one right here.
Yeah, and I want to throw up a little point here, or a comment here, not literally throw it up. Let me put it up on the screen. Tim Euler says, Duke, Jesus also fed 5,000. Wait a minute, Tim. He didn't say, I can't handle all 5,000. I'm going to do the first 25, and then we'll divide it up amongst the rest of y'all. I'm going to assign you to the
Tim,
next 25.
Tim Euler, Brad Jerkovich is no Jesus. I'm sorry, and I don't know any pastor that is.
All right, so,
I'm sorry. Look, I love you, Tim,
but
and
we're
look,
all trying to be more like Jesus. Come on.
yeah,
And people are probably
and
cringing, and I may get struck
and
by
Tim,
lightning any second, but.
and Tim, you did change my mind on the teachers with the guns. I got to tell you, I thought a lot about what you said. You know what? Now I changed my position. I think you're right on that one. I do.
Oh, you're
Anyway,
converting to a liberal
squir-
already.
squirrel. You're saying Tim's a liberal?
I'm saying that with the Second Amendment is much like being pregnant. You either are or you are not.
I ain't
There
saying
is.
they can't. No, he made a point. I'm not going to repeat. I don't want to make the point that he made. I don't want to do that because I'm going
See,
to beat up on
I'm
some
shifting
teachers.
us back to guns and
See,
hunting
that's
and
not
all
right.
those
I
things.
I don't want to. I don't want to say nothing. I mean, look.
All right,
Anyway,
back to Romans 13:1.
yeah, Romans here. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God.
Hey, wait a minute. All right, Tim, you may have to chime in on this. So, if that's the case, and that's what we're told to do in Romans, well, why do we revere the founding fathers so much? The founding fathers of this country. Because they decided they weren't going to submit to their governing authority anymore, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
But
I know that's completely off script, but
yeah, well,
they were godly men, except for this verse. All right. Anyway, Tim, you can
I
chime
mean,
in the comments, please.
Paul Paul was talking about civil issues, he wasn't talking about, criminal cases and, you know, it was trivial stuff, but he also at the same when writing this, he said, hey, they needed, Christians as well needed to be subject to, the governing authorities. I don't know that there's any dispute in that. And I think we talked
Yeah.
about go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, and I'm being a little facetious about the founding fathers, but not 100%, because it's hard to reconcile that. But I think that this is saying, hey, to be able to have a good and moral society, of course, you need to follow the Bible and follow the teachings of God and Christ. But number two, we need to have governing authorities a certain set of laws and rules that we need to all follow. You know, that are not necessarily biblical rules, but based on the Bible and based on biblical principles. So maybe, you know, that's the way I see this, because otherwise, again, you're right, Tim, most of the documents created by the founding fathers were biblically based, except they skipped over Romans 13:1.
So, as a lot of you may or may not know, the Southern Baptist Convention is going on right now. Did you know that, Rex?
Actually,
They're
no, I
actually,
did not.
yeah, they are meeting as we speak in California. And there's some interesting things that are coming out over there in the middle of the Southern Baptist Convention. And ironically, I mean, what is the, you know, the problem with this first church argument, and this problem with this thing going on there is that, you know, the Brad comes along, changes the bylaws. Before, you had a set of bylaws where I think it was your deacons or you had your committee that oversaw, you know, expenditures and all these different things. Brad comes along, and as I understand it, arbitrarily changes all this stuff, right? To where only
That's what
one
it appears.
only one person is has eyes on anything, and only one person gets to make any decisions. Only one person, they're the accounter, and I mean everything, right?
Well, look, he made in his warning to all the church members and, well, basically everybody that saw that. In his warning, he mentions, and I'm paraphrasing, but only slightly, that when you tithe, it's between you and Jesus. No, it's not, Brad. If I tithe to a church, I don't write the check directly to Jesus Christ. I have to write it to the church. Okay? And or to whatever other ministry. But because I write it to the church, in the case of First Bossier, guess who it has to filter through before it ever gets to anything that Jesus may want us to tithe and spend our money on? It has to go through you, Brad.
That's right. Well, and it's and those comments that he made on there pretty egregious. He said that if you got the video,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
let
we
me,
need to go ahead and go play that, because I don't want to
yeah,
put words in his mouth, but I got to tell you, it was pretty astonishing,
yes,
him
it
standing
was.
on the stage of a church making the comments that he was making.
Yes, it was. So let me make this a little bit larger here. And I'm going to hit play. So here we go.
That they were requesting. Just as important, and I want you to hear me very, very clearly today, just as important, the judge specifically referenced and affirmed the confidentiality and non-disclosure agreement. Let me just say that again. He affirmed the confidentiality and non-disclosure agreement that this group of now former members signed. This means that absolutely none of the information already produced or to be produced under this ruling is to be shared or leaked. And if any of it is, then this group will be held accountable legally. And I want you to hear me on something. That's right. And I want you to hear me. If you see something on social media from our church, then please let our staff team know. If you see or hear something shared in our community that you know is from our church, then you need to let us know. Confidentiality means something, and we are grateful that the judge included that and is enforcing that in that requirement. That is important, church. That is one of the main things that we were fighting for this church for the last 10 months. Because that's important. And no matter how you spin it, that we're not being transparent, there are certain things like tithing. When you give to the Lord God, that's you and the Lord. Okay?
Except it goes through Brad.
And if you see something out there, if you hear something, or if you're at a restaurant and, oh, did you hear about this? Well, where'd you get that information? Well, I can't tell you. You let us know.
See something, say something.
Even if it's leaked anonymously, that is confidential, and that group will be held
Confidential.
legally. Do you understand?
Confidential.
Oh, and
That's
here's
very
the applause.
important.
All right,
They
so
were-
Brad, if you get
Confidentiality means something, Rex.
yeah, where do we even start with that one? So here's the accepted challenge as we posted a few days ago. Oh, and I want to give credit to the edit of this video to Twitter user at the SBC platform. So I'd encourage you to go follow at the SBC platform on Twitter. Now, the full sermon for full context is posted on First Bossier's Facebook page, and I think it came from whatever day that was, the 7th maybe, or whatever day that was. Anyway, so you can go watch the full sermon for full context of that. But Brad, here's the problem. You're assuming, which is a dangerous word because it might make an ass of you and me, that the people who filed a lawsuit are the only ones that have or might have access to the financials. First place, I don't think the people who were involved in the lawsuit, I don't speak for them, have no idea, but I don't think that they care who tithed what or who gave what. What they care about are the total amounts so that they can go back and do what they plan to do, which is run the math, because the math doesn't lie. But Brad, you're assuming again that they're the only ones that would have access to this. Now, unless you're running the entire church, Brad, everything, and I don't think that you are running the entire church. I'm sure y'all have accountants and bookkeepers and secretaries and all that sort of thing. Brad, newsflash, any one of them might decide they've had enough of you and what you're doing to that church. So
I'm chomping at the bits to see him take on a foreign country where proton mail is. I'm dying to see him go after him. Let's see how that one works out.
call Sweden, Brad. But here, and look, to be clear, so we don't have access to the books. We don't want access to their books or whatever.
Great point, Brittany House. Now, in that video, she reminded me because I was watching. I even put it in the notes. He put in there. He's like talking about tithing, and it should be private, right?
Right.
Look, I was up there in the courtroom the day. They specifically said, we're not looking for any names. The only thing we're looking for is the denominations, the dollar amount. He just right there on that video, that's not true.
Well,
That is not
he's
true.
he's pulling at emotional heartstrings and pulling at purse strings. You may as well pull out a thing of Flavor Aid, Brad, and just start handing it to everybody. Just take a shortcut, Brad.
If you were at this and you clap for that, you just clap for that man, suggesting that the people doing what they're doing was something different, because that's not true. They made a point to say it should be in the court minutes and the record, and I heard it. I mean, you can call me a liar. That's fine. I heard it with my own ears. I was there. I seen it.
Yeah,
and I'm telling you
firsthand.
what he just said wasn't true.
Yeah. Now, I want to put up a comment by Mike Welch. And Mike, hey, we appreciate your commentary. We don't always respond or whatever, obviously, because we want to see everybody else. But we appreciate your commentary, whether we agree or not. But Mike Welch says you have a group of people suing the pastor and church, and the pastor of the church threatening to sue that same group of people. And he's also threatening, Mike, to sue other people. If you actually listen to what he says, there is so much wrong with this, I don't know where to start. I don't disagree with you at all, Mike. There's a lot wrong with this whole situation, a lot. And it starts at the top down.
It starts at the top, who took control of everything solely and making all of the decision making. Now, interestingly, he's the Conservative Baptist Network guy, right? So it's a competing group. Now, you just heard him talk about, confidentiality. That means something. You just heard him say that, right?
Right.
Well, I'm thinking cut 8, and what is the Conservative Baptist Network? That's
Hmm.
his little organization. I'm wondering what they historically think about, you know,
Well, let's just show
keeping.
that on the screen. And I know the font's a little small, folks, so of course I would be glad to read it. So this is a statement dated November 18th of 2021, so not long ago, from the Conservative Baptist Network. Um, and it's apparently in the context of the documentary Enemies Within the Church. But they say, although the CBN did not produce a documentary and is merely facilitating a screening of it, we're extremely concerned about the documented evidence it presents, as should be all Southern Baptists. Um, Consider, should a Southern Baptist entity, let's see, encourage women to violate Scripture's teaching that a woman should not teach or have authority over a man in the church by affirming a female preacher? I mean, we're going to go strictly by the Bible. Not supposed to have female preachers. Condone plagiarism. All right. By inviting to chapel the current SBC president, who has been shown to be irrefutably engaged in sermon plagiarism. That's interesting. All right, so let me get down here. Oh, here we go. This last bullet point down here. Facilitate non-disclosure agreements with those forced or encouraged to end their seminary employment. That just seems, is it just me, or is that a little hypocritical?
Sounds like it to me. I mean, I'm wondering what are so confidentiality means something, Rex.
Well, it does. And confidentiality is one thing, but non-disclosure agreements um, are another. I mean, you can have it. He just doesn't
So
want this getting out there. Now, and look, let me just say this as well. The folks who were involved in the lawsuit and other former members or even current members of the church, let's just say Brad wakes up one morning and goes, you know what, I'm actually going to do the right thing, and I'm going to let all these people view the financials. And let's say even does it in the context of an NDA. He lets 24 people come in there and spend all the time they want reviewing all the financials. They just have to sign an NDA. They might not find anything wrong. I mean, there is that possibility.
there is that possibility. But why not let them? I mean,
That is the question.
so like I said earlier, the Southern Baptist Convention is going on right now as we speak in California. And something popped up on my Twitter feed today, Rex, and I about fell out of my chair. And if you go to cut 7, remember us talking about Paige Patterson?
Yes, that name is
Remember that
awfully
name?
familiar. Yes, let me get cut
Remember,
7 pulled up.
how can you forget? He was the guy over there at the seminary college over there in Texas,
Oh
and
yeah, that Paige
all of us.
Patterson with the mysterious
Yeah,
money and donations and
yeah, and he
names
got run
being.
off. He left,
Yeah.
and then Brad was put on his board over there or whatever. Well, okay, here's this guy, Robert Dowen. Now he is a reporter. He writes a lot of Christian articles and things, and that's basically his thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he's at in the morning time. He's there for the Conservative Baptist Network's little groups meeting, morning breakfast or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Paige Patterson was there, and ironically, Paige Patterson sat at the table with him.
Hmm.
Now I want you to look and read what he says about when he got an interview with Paige Patterson, and there'll be more that'll come out about it. But you see read what he says right there. I'll let you read. You read
Yeah,
that.
so I'll start from the top up there. So it says Paige Patterson compared himself to the Apostle Paul and said, Jesus forgave my sins. He saved me from all my sins, and he would do the same thing for anybody. I asked,
Don't take issue with that right there.
no. I repeatedly, and this is, of course, Robert saying it, I repeatedly asked him to specify what those sins were. He wouldn't.
He's inferring about the money and the stuff at the college.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think that he's inferring about. And also Robert Dowden also, and you can go to his Twitter page and you can see it, but they had all kinds of tables. Remember us talking about fashioning whips? They
Right.
had apparently all kinds of tables with political stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really? Wait. At the Southern Baptist Network convention?
No, not at the Southern Baptist
Or
at
was
the
that just? Oh, I'm sorry.
Conservative Baptist
Okay,
Network.
that's Brad. Did Brad have a table there with political stuff, like a vendor?
No.
Oh,
Brad
okay.
didn't. But I'm
Oh,
just
okay.
saying there was political stuff there. So, Charlie, see right there at the bottom, Southern Baptist Group hosts right-wing leader Charlie Kirk. Now, I like listening to
Okay.
Charlie Kirk
Mm-hmm.
podcast. I like listening to it or whatever. I agree politically, ideologically. I disagree that we should be, because I think it's a vicious circle. Yeah, a lot of Democrats do it. A lot of Democrat churches do it, but I think it's a vicious circle where we end up lose. And by virtue of me saying that, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I even have read in some of these circles where that's the devil and Satan. I am the devil and Satan by saying that I don't believe that politics should be in the church.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm satanic.
Hmm. Well, I don't think you're satanic. I haven't
Oh,
ever seen you spin your head around or puke pea soup up or whatever.
but apparently, to a lot of these people, for you to not believe that politics should be in the church in any way, that makes you satanic.
Well, look, here's the thing with me. I'm you and I disagree slightly that I'm not saying that politics should never be used in the church. Where I have a problem with is when they are, uh, under nonprofit status. Hey, you want to talk about politics in the church? Go for it. Pay taxes like everybody else and preach about politics straight from the pulpit. I've got a friend of mine and a pastor who has watched this show before. The church is not a nonprofit, and he will absolutely get up there and preach what he thinks.
Okay, so Paige Patterson, right? He's already done washed this thing away, that he's done been forgiven of his sins. Now,
Right.
I'm wondering if that will be the same line we hear if anything was found in Bossier First Church, right? Would that be
Well,
the line that we would hear? I think it would be the line that we would hear. So, but confidentiality means something, Rex. Interestingly, today at the Southern Baptist Convention, there was a motion made on the floor. And you want to know what it was?
oh, I'm dying to hear this. Yes.
There was a motion today that was made to investigate the Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary over abuse allegations. And,
Oh,
when we were talking about those NDAs a while ago with
right. I knew
now,
this was kind of sounding creepy.
yeah. And so interestingly, I couldn't find, it's another reporter reporting on the Southern Baptist Convention that reported this. And they said that it was the Conservative Baptist Network folks that were pushing this argument for an investigation over the abuse allegations
Hmm.
and calling
So,
for the investigation. But confidentiality means something, Rex.
yeah, don't say anything. Keep quiet, folks, except when they want to weaponize it. Look, I'm all for them investigating all this stuff. That's not the point. The point is, and look, let me point this out. So Mike Welch has a good comment to remind us that Brad is the spokesman for the Conservative Baptist Network and was one of the main founders. Also means he's pretty much the primary hypocrite.
Well, the way I'm looking at this is that the Conservative Baptist Network is wanting to have their cake and eat it too. You can't say in Bossier, no, we can't talk about finances. It can't be all out in the public. People can't know, even the people that are making the donations, and they can't know. Your deacons can't know. You just got to take my word for it. But
Yeah,
yet,
trust Brad.
trust Brad.
The
But
same
when it
Brad that
comes,
runs people out that he apparently, in my opinion, sees as a threat. Let me read this one comment real quick. Angie Agostini says, my biggest issue with Brad's statement, only his statement, is that he did it from the pulpit as part of his sermon. I will not say what that reminds me of.
yeah. So, but yet people from the Conservative Baptist Network are, you know, there at the Southern Baptist Convention calling for an investigation, over abuse allegations. Is that right? Yeah, it should be. But how can you justify, you know, you want to shine sunlight in one spot, but you don't want to shine the light in another?
Well, it's like we were having the discussion earlier this afternoon. It's like selectively using Bible verses and weaponizing them. It's literally the same thing. And so in this case, the pastor is, he's basically weaponizing the congregation because he knows he can't, play whack-a-mole with all the potential places where that data may leak, or, somebody may create a free Proton Mail account and make it anonymous. Don't put any identifying information, and feel free to share that information with whoever you want. So he's weaponizing the entire congregation to see something, say something. And that just bothers me. And I agree. That wasn't in like a staff meeting or anything like that. He literally preaching that from the pulpit.
Well, here's the thing. They're at the conservative, I mean, listen at me saying it. At the Southern Baptist Convention, they're haggling over, a lot of things. You've got some abuse stuff from years that's going on. Should sunlight be shined on all of it and it be cleaned up, put to bed? Yeah. you know, I think, there were people that were made to sign non-disclosures that may have been sexually abused by people associated with the Southern Baptist Convention in years past. Should that all be brought to light and should it all be addressed and done with? Yeah. And in fact, I think that uh, a lady from Baton Rouge actually made the motion today. Um, she did that. I think they're haggling with, LGBT stuff. Should there be LGBT anything to do with the church or whatever? And you know, here's my thing. No, I don't think there should be gay marriages and weddings. Absolutely not. But should somebody who's gay be allowed to come to church? Yeah, they should be. I don't think we should close the door to anybody. I would
Agree
never
100%.
articulate to that. Don't believe that. They're haggling with should there be females as preachers or pastors? They're haggling with that. Um, so in the midst of all of this, you can't have the Conservative Baptist Network haggling for we want an investigation and sunlight in one way, but yet we don't want it the other way. That's hypocrisy, right? Is
Yeah.
that not the definition of hypocrisy? I mean, granted, if there's something to do with the money, I mean, yeah, that's speculation because some people believe the money didn't go maybe the where it was originally intended to or the way that it should. Obviously, that's a belief. And there's people that say there was, you know, sexual abuse or an allegation. And obviously, there's people that believe that. I mean, either way, it's wrong. And either way, should both cases be investigated and looked at? Yes. And should it not go to a court or
Well,
outside?
look, I mean, here's the facts of the matter as far as sin is concerned, is theft any more sinful than sexual abuse in the eyes of God? That's a rhetorical question, folks.
The lady's name that made the motion today was Michelle D. Leslie. And anyway, she is on Twitter and she's got a pretty good following. I think I have a link. I built a link into the notes to
Yeah,
this
I'll show.
lady.
Yeah, I'll show it here in a second. I want to put up this comment from Brittany House. This is a good comment. Churches deal with the problem of evil and morality. The government makes morality political, not the church. The politicians and media can't own the discussion about every moral issue and expect the church to be silent. Morality is definitely part of the church's turf.
Agree with that. But I don't believe the church should be weaponized politically for Democrat or Republican. And some people would argue that, the Democrats have used the church for years. And, that's the Satan in me speaking. How dare I say that? Democrats use the church, but, Republicans should too. Well, just because somebody else is doing it doesn't mean that we should do it too.
Yeah, I agree. Is this is the one you wanted me to show, Michelle Leslie? Is that correct?
As okay. So it goes back to my fire department days. I can remember being on the ambulance where I had to jump out, where the police had the wise idea of using an ambulance to make a drug bust in a community in Bossier one time. So the next shift, when I make a call, I jump out of the back of the ambulance and we're immediately surrounded by all these people in this community, right? Because they think we're the jump out boys to arrest them all. And here's me, the paramedic, and two back end men on the ambulance, and we're surrounded. Well,
I don't even want to know whose idea that was, but yeah, go ahead. I got to hear this.
Yeah. Well, I'm just sorry. I don't care. I was packing. You know what? And the other guys that worked with me, they knew I was packing, but here's the bottom line. I would rather be alive without a job than dead with a job. And the same thing when it comes to, if the politicking in the church, you know what? It may be right. May not, good Lord may not have no problem with it, but I'm not going to leave it to chance. When I get to the end of my days, I'm not going to have to worry about that one, brother. That can be somebody else's problem to worry about.
That's a good, very valid point and a very good reason for maintaining your stance.
You use the church if you want to. Go ahead and try that one. That's your choice.
And we're not supposed to use the Lord's name in vain, but apparently we use the churches for a lot of vain stuff. Okay, so, and look, folks, we appreciate everybody's comments. We've been running between 80 and 100 people. We don't have, there's been no groundbreaking information shared yet. But as information comes to us and we, kind of do our thing where we try to vet it out, make sure it's, at least somewhere in the realm of truth or possibly, then we will be glad to share that out. And I want to make sure and encourage I would like to see a deal kind of circling back to Holly from earlier. I would like to see a deal where we start having, several people, half a dozen, 10, 20, whatever, go to the city council meetings. And then we have somebody that's willing from those meetings. And I'd like for it to be different people from time to time, come on the show and give us a report from being there. Somebody made the comment, and I think he was referring to us earlier. Where were we during the meeting? Well, we weren't there. We're as guilty as everybody else. But one of the things we try to do is report on that to everybody that couldn't attend those meetings. And of course, we put our spin on it too.
Yeah, and Chris Smith, to the point, tomorrow they're voting on the redistricting thing. If you have an opinion on it, Chris Smith, in his post he said he's not gotten one email or phone call about it.
Wow.
You know what? There's still time. They're going to vote on it tomorrow. If you have an opinion on it, you need to let them know, not just Chris Smith. I mean, all of them.
Yeah.
If it's your councilman in a district and you got two at-larges, which is everybody's, let them know your thoughts.
Let them all know. It's easy to carbon copy.
That's exactly right.
All right. Anything else that groundbreaking or earth-shattering that we need to share?
No, it's not. Anyway, and if you're somebody out there having reservations about whether it's right or wrong about, a Christian suing over this church, I mean, we showed you cut 6, Romans, We
Yeah.
showed you, we compared. I think, you're okay. I don't
Yeah.
think you have to worry about that you're going to go to hell because you're suing in a ungodly church. I mean, the good Lord made everything. He made us. He made this show, electronics. I mean, even Rex's snappy little things, chickens on the screen, and all that stuff.
Well,
It's
look,
all because of him.
I never thought I would be saying this, but if, we're generally taught as Christians that, of course, God creates everything and God is perfect and doesn't make any mistakes. Unfortunately, God created all the lawyers, so they must have some use in the world. He didn't create them
But
just so it'd be an attractive sin for everybody.
but there was that stuff on your plate that you kept pushing around when you were 10 years old, around and around and around your plate.
Well, and not well. My mom makes some of the best spaghetti in the world, and she makes it with chopped mushrooms or sliced mushrooms. And I didn't like mushrooms till I was, I don't know, 20 years old, and so I used to push the mushrooms around because she would not give me spaghetti. I mean, she's like, "You're eating a spaghetti, whether it's got mushrooms or not." Oh, and I didn't like to eat bread crust for the longest time. I don't know what that was about either. Fortunately, like I said, everything but asparagus. If I were starving, I might eat asparagus. But
All right, folks. We appreciate it. And Rex I'm going to cook you some mushrooms, dude. You're going to like them.
oh, hey, I'm all about them now. Please. So fried mushrooms, I don't care. Sauteed, I'm all about the mushrooms these days. Funny how things
All right.
change.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.
We appreciate all of y'all. We will see you again next Tuesday, maybe before something earth-shattering happens. Y'all continue to send us information. Please continue to comment. We really do enjoy reading the commentary as it's going. Again, whether you agree with us or not, comment anyway. We'll see you next week.